Hey there, welcome, and in this lecture I'll show you how to create a graph using Bokeh. So we'll quickly kick it off with the Bokeh library now and see what Bokeh can do. So specifically in this lecture you will learn how to create a scatter plot using Bokeh. So first thing you want to do is make sure you have Bokeh installed. So if you haven't installed it yet, you can just go ahead and pip install Bokeh in your command line. But beware though that you may need to have pandas and numpy installed in your system for Bokeh to work properly. So we have already consumed pandas and numpy in the previous sections of this course. So I assume you have them and you know how to install them. So pip install Bokeh, and it's collecting. So running setup.py for Bokeh. And done. Great. And the next thing you may consider doing is you may want to use a Jupyter notebook to generate Bokeh plots. The Jupyter notebook is a fantastic notebook to run Python code, so I would highly suggest you use that. And I showed you how to install the Jupyter notebook in the previous lecture, so I'll go ahead and run it now. Great. So at the moment all we have is an empty browser tab page, and you may want to go ahead and create a Python 3 notebook. Now, there are basically three ways to generate visualizations using Bokeh. These are referred as interfaces. So you've got the bokeh.models interface, and you have the bokeh.plotting interface, and you also have the bokeh.charts interface. Now the models interface is basically targeted to application developers, and this is quite a low level interface, so you'll have to do yourself lots of work if you're using this interface. The other interface, bokeh.plotting, is a medium level interface, so you have lots of room for customizing things with a plotting interface. And you also have the charts interface, which is a high level interface. So to understand it better, for instance, let's say you want to create a scatter plot. So a plot with an x and y axis and with some points inside the area of a plot. And you can do that using the plotting interface. And in that case, you'd have to create a figure object and then apply a circle object in that figure object. So circles would represent the points you want to plot in the scatter plot. And you have to pass some parameters explicitly there. But with the charts interface, you can straightforward use the scatter method of this interface. So you do something like bokeh.charts.scatter, and then straightforward there you would pass the pandas data frame and the columns you want to map in the plot, so the columns you want to plot in the scatter plot, and basically you are done. So you've got to make some choices there. And also you have the models interface. We'll go later through that, but basically with models you can modify the grid of your area and other low-level parameters of your plots. So I would suggest the way to go is the plotting interface. I will be focusing in the plotting interface in this section, but also go through the models and charts interface. And in this very first lecture, I would like to start with the charts interface of Bokeh. And then we'll do the same thing, so the same scatter plot using the plotting interface, so that you can see the difference and things will make sense then. So what you want to do is, from bokeh.charts, import scatter. So that's a method that creates a scatter plot. Great. Enter. So just enter to go to the next line of your current cell in the Jupyter notebook. And then the function, the scatter plot, goes like this. Let's save it in a variable. So let's say p equals to scatter. So we are saving the scatter object in the p variable. scatter, and then you need to pass the data frame that is keeping your data. Then once you pass the data frame, so the data frame, let's say, has some columns, so it has an X column, so a column labeled X and a column labeled Y, and you need to pass the names of the columns you want to use as X and Y coordinates for the plot, for the points you want to plot. So you want to pass them here. Let's say your X column is called X, so with capital letter, and then for Y parameter you have the Y column in the data frame. I'll create a data frame just in a moment, so please bear with me there. And you may want to pass a title for the scatter plot, say temperature observations, and let's say a X label, so the X label parameter, which will label your horizontal axis. Let's say day of observation, and Y label as well temperature, just like that. And so you need a data frame, so let me create a data frame quickly here. First of all, I need to import pandas. So we're talking about pandas data frame, and you know how to create them because I explained that in the previous sections. So an empty data frame would be like pandas data frame columns. So we have an X column with a big X and Y, just like that. And then we need to populate these columns with some rows. So we need to add some values there. And let's say the X column will have these values: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The Y column, let's say 5, 6, 4, 5, and 3. So that should create a data frame for us. Actually, we can quickly test it in another cell. B to create a new cell, enter to enter the cell, Control V to paste the text in there. So Alt enter to go to the next cell, and simply print out the data frame, df. So that's our pandas data frame. Great. dd to delete the cell, dd to delete the cell again, and here we are again. So we're passing the df here, and so we have a scatter plot object at this point. Now what we want to do is, we have two options here. We can either show the plot in an HTML file, so we want to generate a .html file, or we can show the plot here inside the Jupyter notebook. So I'll show you how to do both options, but first let's go ahead and create an HTML file. So you need to import the output file class here from the bokeh.charts. And this output file class is available in other interfaces as well. So you'll find it in the bokeh.models interface, in the bokeh.plotting interface, because this is a global class. And you also need the show method there, and you'll see how we use that too. And so output file scatter from charts. This is how I want to name my file, .html, and then the show method p. That's it. So what this will do, it will create this file in the current directory, which was here. So as you see, I started from an empty directory here, but now I have the IPython notebook file, so, or Jupyter file if you like. But this is how it was, it used to be called. And so this is our script. Let's go ahead and execute this. So you can go ahead and Control Enter to execute this, and we get the plot in another tab. So in this directory. So this looks pretty good. Here you see that we've got a toolbar. So we have the pan tool here, so it allows us to pan around the area. or if you want you can zoom in a certain area with a box zoom. This will be more appropriate when you have lots of points or lots of details in a line chart. You may want to resize the chart. And the wheel zoom, so you can zoom out and in with that. You can save the graph as a PNG file if you like, so save image and PNG there, and then you have a graph in an image file. Or you can reset the graph as it was in the beginning. And you also have a help icon here to ask for help about Bokeh. So that's it for now. So we use the charts interface to create a scatter plot. In the next lecture we will use the plotting interface to create the same plot. So see you later. Alright, using the scatter method of the Bokeh.charts interface, we were able to plot these points in this scatter plot. Now we'll be trying to make the same plot using the Bokeh.plotting interface, which is a medium level interface, so this one was a high level interface. But I recommend you use the Bokeh.plotting interface, so you'd better focus on the plotting interface, because that gives you a higher level or customization. So escape here and then B, and you get a new cell, enter. And so the first thing you may want to do is import. So from Bokeh.plotting you want to import the figure object, so that's the main object that you'll be using to plot elements in your plot. So the figure object is, you can call it the plot, so the area that will contain these elements. And these elements that I'm talking about are referred to as glyphs in the Bokeh vocabulary. So the idea is that you create a figure object, and that will be empty, and then you add a line glyph, let's say, or a circle glyph. And this, for example, a circle glyph, you'll have 5 circle glyphs, and then these glyphs make up the scatter plot. So let's see how we do that. Output file in this case as well, and show method. So in this case, instead of going ahead and creating the scatter object, we would want to call the figure object instead. Now you can leave the figure object empty of parameters, or you can add a plot width, let's say 500, and a plot height, say 400 for this. So if you don't pass this, it will still work, but your plot will be sized depending on what the developers of Bokeh have set as default values. Great, so once you have a figure object, then you go ahead and access the p variable where you store that object, and then add the glyphs to that. So let's say it's circle. Now what the circle method expects, it's an array with the x values and an array with the y values. So sort of you need to pass the x value for the first circle, the x value for the second, third, and so on. So depending on how many circles you want to input there, you set the values here. So let's say we have x here above 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and y 5, 6, 4, 5, 3. And you can also control the size of the circles, so let's say 5 for the size, the color red, and let's keep it like this for a moment. And finally you want to specify the output file, scatter plotting.html, and show the p plot. So this looks good, and let's try this. Yep. So you can see some differences probably there. So you see that here, for instance, these dots in the charts graph These dots are a bit transparent, so there's a level of opacity there. And in our plotting graph, the dots are not transparent. But you can control that too. So you can add an alpha parameter there, and let's say 50%, so 0.5 transparency. And I may want to increase the size here, 12. See again what we get. So this looks good. It's closer to this. Now if you want, you can replace these circles with other markers. And you've got other markers such as triangles, diamonds, squares, and so on. So let's put in here, let's put a triangle. Let's see what we get. So as easy as that. That's why I like the plotting interface, because you have more control over code. So it's low level. Maybe you have to write some more lines of code, but by the end of the day, you're sure that if you start to build something, you have something in mind. You have some graphs that you want to build by the end of the day. You're more sure that you'll build them with plotting, with a plotting interface, because you have more control there, so you have a higher level of customization. And there are also other tricks that you may want to do here. So for size, let's see, you may have to display these circles or these triangles with various sizes. So let me put this back to circle. And so you'll have to follow this order. So for this pair of coordinates, you would have to pass, for example, a size of 8, and then some other sizes, 12, 14, 15, and 20. Yeah, so we've got 5 circles there. Execute. And yeah, you can see now that we have various sizes. So that's great. Or if you want to double the size of these circles, you can do that in line. So using a list comprehension, you want to double it, right? So I times 2 for I in this list. So what this will do, it will create a new list with values 16, 24, 28, and so on. And yeah, I am missing another square bracket here. So this is the outer list here, and that list will be constructed by this list comprehension expression here. Okay. And we've got bigger circles there. Great. And I think we're missing a title here, so let's go ahead and add one. And you do that in the figure object. So title there. Let's call this earthquakes. And here is the title. And we also need to add some labels to our X and Y axis. And also I need to show you how to create plots out of data frames. So with a scatter plot, we were able to create a plot of a data frame, of a pandas data frame. And you may also want to do the same here, so that you later could also generate visualizations out of CSV files or Excel files. So we need to configure the X and Y axis first, and I'll show you how to do that in the next lecture. Let's move on. Great, so the last change that I did to this script was adding the title in the figure object, in the figure method that generates a figure object. And so what we have is this plot. In this lecture you'll learn how to customize the style of your plots. So we have done something already, but we want to do more so that you can make beautiful plots that satisfy your needs. So now what I'll do is I'll change the font, the color and the font style of the title, and I'll also add a label for the y-axis and a label for the x-axis. So a way to do that is to go ahead and start adding parameters here and provide arguments from them like this, and so on, so on. But another more constructive way to do this would be to access, so to point to the p variable which holds the figure object, and then to the attributes that you want to add to your plot. So let's say title, and I'll delete this from here, so remove it from there and add it here, earthquake. Execute, and you get the same result. So instead of putting that here, you can go ahead and write parameters just like that. So next you may want to change the title text color, let's say orange. Execute, and you get an orange color for the title. You also have other parameters, let's say title text font times for New Times Roman. So you get a different font there. And one more attribute, title text font style, say italic. So that's the idea. If you want to know, to get a full list of what you can add, what attributes you can add to your plots, you'd want to do something like help and the plot object in there. And so you get the definition of the figure object there, and you get the attributes that you want to input to the object, and then you have the keyword arguments. So these are the attributes I'm talking about, and you can also find, say, title text font, for instance. It's a long list, so yeah, here is title text font, title text font size, and style. So if you think about changing something, some properties, some parameters from your plots, you can go help P and search for the thing you want to change, so that you can locate the correct syntax for that attribute. You can also play around with the grid and the ticks of your plot. Let's say you would want to remove the minor ticks of your x-axis, so these ones here. So you're left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to do that, again, you point to the p figure and then y-axis, so to the y-axis, and then to minor tick line color, and you want to set that color to none. So that's a trick there. And oh, sorry, yeah, I said I want to remove the x-axis, but I remove the y-axis, so you get the idea. So y-axis for removing the ticks for the y-axis. Okay, so we set the color to none. If you want to change the color to something else, you can do that. So yellow, and you get this yellow ticks there. Okay, and what else can we do? Well, x-axis, axis label, let's say time, and p, y-axis, axis label value. So what I'm doing is I'm putting some labels there for the y and the x-axis. As easy as that. So basically that's how you customize your plots so that you can make them colorful and very attractive to the eye. Let's move on. Hey, very quickly now, I would like to talk a little bit about this HTML file that we are generating here. So, I don't know if you were curious and actually open the source code of this HTML file. If not, I'll open it now and talk about this a little bit. So, what we've got here is we have these HTML tags and here comes the HTML code. So which renders the web page that we're seeing on the browser. Now, as you know, you have also JavaScript and CSS, where JavaScript is a scripting language that makes possible the interaction between the elements in the browser in your web page, and CSS, which is responsible for the styling of your HTML text and other elements. So you need this JavaScript and CSS files, and if you can see here we are declaring the style sheet, and as you see, this is stored in a remote server. So every time you're generating a graph, Bokeh is actually pulling this this CSS file from this server, so pydata.org. And the same thing goes for the JavaScript file, so here. But it is also possible to actually host these two files locally in your computer. So this is the default mode, and it's called the CDN mode. And actually we can specify that mode in here. So at the moment, the mode, so we have a mode parameter there, and this is set to CDN, which stands for Content Delivery Network, which basically is your HTML file is fetching the JavaScript and the CSS files from a remote server. So this is the default. Now if you want, you can actually pass some other arguments here. So you may pass relative, or you may pass absolute, or inline. Let's quickly try them out. So relative, execute the plot, remove this old one. So you still get the same output. So if you have a look at this now, you'll see that your CSS file is being saved in your local directory here, so which is inside the Bokeh directory, so the Bokeh library directory inside packages, and here and here, and so bokeh.min.css, and the same thing for the JavaScript file. So that's for the relative. For absolute, you'd get same thing, but this would not be relative path, but you'd have something like, C backslash and your path to the user and so on. You get the idea. And you've also got the inline. So this, as you might expect, you get the same results, of course, but if you check this now, you'll see lots of code in here, because the JavaScript file is loading inline, so in your HTML file, and your style sheet, so the CSS code is here as well. So probably not the best solution, but something I thought you should know about. And the last thing I'd like to show you is actually how to remove this toolbar here, and also this logo, or even how to keep only one or two of these tools here. So the way to do that is, so let's do it with the Bokeh.charts interface first. So what you have to do is you need to pass a tools parameter there, and if you set it to an empty string like this, you'll get no toolbar in there. You still get this Bokeh logo though, which takes you to the Bokeh web page. So if you want to remove that too, you can say logo equals to none, and the logo disappears. And you can actually do the same for the figure object here. So tools equals to none and logo equals to none, and you get a clean graph here. And lastly, if you want to show, let's say, only the pan tool, so you write pan, so you pass it as a string there, and you get the pan tool only there. If you want to have specific tools, so the pan and the resize tool, you can have them. So just pass them divided by comma and you're okay. So that's what I wanted to tell you in this short, I believe, lecture, and I'll see you later. Alright, in this lecture you learn how to make time series graphs. So we're talking about data where one of the axes, so normally the x-axis consists of dates or times. So let's say we have temperature observations for several dates, and we're going to have to plot these values along the x and y axis. I've got some nice data here that we're going to take from this link. So it's a CSV file. You don't have to download the CSV file actually, because we will be passing it as a link directly to the read CSV method. So what we've got here is a date column and some other attributes. So you may want to plot the date along the x-axis, and then in the y-axis you want to show one of these features. Let's say this attribute, close. So I'm gonna close this. I don't need this file because I'll use the direct link. And let me create a new cell. So I'll be using again the Bokeh.plotting interface here, and also import pandas. The key here is that we will be using a pandas data frame, and then we'll parse this date time column as dates, so that Python reads them as dates and actually is able to plot them in the x-axis. And then we'll be using a line glyph to plot this data. So a line glyph would be, you can use circles, triangles, etc., but you can also use lines. So you'd pass a line here, but then the size doesn't make sense because you may want to pass a line width for the line, so not size but line width. And yeah, if you execute this, you don't see circles anymore, so it's not a scatter plot now, but it's a line chart. So we'll use the same concept for building this date-time graph, time series graph. So first thing you want to do is load the CSV data inside Python. So pandas read CSV, and you can pass actually the link, this link, directly to the CSV method. So how convenient is that? And then you want to pass the parse dates parameter here, and you want to specify the name of the column where these dates are, and the name of that column was date. So if you remember from the CSV file that I opened earlier, that was date. And so once you load the data frame object, you want to create a figure object. Let's say width equals to 500 and height, let's say 500 for now, then we check how it goes and we can change it later. So we have the x-axis type parameter here. So what this should do is you want to make your x-axis special, so that it can read date time data types. And so to declare that you have date times, you need to pass a date time argument as a string there. So that's it. And then what you want to do is apply the line object in there. So similar to this, now you need to pass the x-axis and the y-axis. So the x-axis here should be df date, and the other axis is, let's say, close, so the close column. And let's make the line orange. And what else? Maybe a transparency of 0.5. and specify where you want to save this. So under what name, HTML time series.html, and lastly show the plot. And let's see. And something is not working, so Python is not being able to pull off the data there. Oh yeah, I need to pass the date here as a list actually. So yeah, now it looks better, but it also looks a bit squeezed. So what you can do here is you can change this to, let's say, 250, and you'll get a better graph there. Now if you want to extend it to the entire page, there's something you can do there. You can actually pass the responsive and set it to true. Let's see. So you get a bigger graph there. And of course you can zoom in to see some details there. So for May 8, you have a value of 180. You get the idea. So that concludes this lecture, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, let's sum it up now. So we were able to generate graphs, and you saw that until now we generated like single graphs. So for instance, here you'll see a line graph. Now if you want to combine multiple glyphs in one plot, that would be very simple. So let's say you've got two plots. You'll add a scatter plot there, so you'll need to add a circle glyph, so just below this line glyph, or above that, doesn't matter. So circles, and with these coordinates, or we can change them. So let's say, let's double this x-axis, e times 2 for I in this list, which closes here. So, and then this should be the size, let's say 8, and olive. So this is how you get multiple glyphs in one plot. That was very easy. And so I believe I gave you a good introduction to the Bokeh library, and I believe you see its potential. So it's great to actually use Bokeh for generating visualizations. Now if you want to go deeper into Bokeh, so you may want to have to plot different types of graphs, I would point you first to this resource. So this is documentation, the Bokeh documentation, and this is about plotting with glyphs. So what you have here is various examples. We use this one actually, and other ones as well, lines, and you can also plot patches. So basically you pass the coordinates of each of the points of the polygon here, and Bokeh will draw the polygon there. So these are the basic things, and here I'd like to stop a little bit. So this is called a quadrat plot, actually, this one here. So instead of passing a circle or a line, you'll pass a quad. What this consists of is the top, so the upper border of your quadrant. So for instance, this first quadrant here has a top border of 2 and a bottom of 1, so it's a border with 1 and 2, and then left would be 1 and right 1.2, so 1 left and 1.2 right. And then you have the next quadrant, which is this one here, with its coordinates as well, and so on. And here's the colors, so you can use CSS color codes if you want, besides using color strings like red and orange and yellow and so on. So the reason I stopped this plot is that we'll be using this plot to actually visualize the times for our video program. So the times when an object enters the video frame and when the object exits the video frame. So it would be great if you start thinking about this now, how you're gonna make use of the CSV file that we generated in the video program earlier, and plot that file in a similar graph like this one. So there are some tricks there, and I don't expect you to fully solve this, but it's good to think about that. And you also have this gallery here, so the Bokeh gallery. Here you have some beautiful plots. So you've got the histogram. If you click one of these, so for instance how to make this map, so you can simply copy this code and paste it in your script and run it, and you'll get the same map. That's what I wanted to teach you about Bokeh, and we'll be using it later, as I said, for visualizing these times when an object is moving in our video frame in front of our webcam. So I'll talk to you later.